Welcome back to the Intentional Queen podcast. I'm Janine, a life coach and also the host of Intentional Queen podcast, where I come to empower women to become the best versions of themselves on their self-love, self-healing, and growth mindset journey. Oh my gosh, guys, it's 2022. I'm sorry if my voice sounds a little bit raspy, but we gonna get through it because, like I said, when God tell me to do something, I do it. And for two, y'all know I'm consistent, so no matter how it's going, sorry if it cuts in and out, but I'm gonna try my best to deliver this message for you guys that was on my spirit today. And we just gonna get y'all going. So first and foremost, I want to wish you guys all a happy new year. And I'm just wishing y'all peace and love as we're going into 2022. I wanted to talk to you guys a little bit about my word of the year. And so last year for me, my word for 2021 was pivoting, and my word for 2020 was peace. So this year, I want to call my word evolve or evolution, however we want to use it when we put that word together, but evolve. And the reason why I feel like it's evolved for me, because when I pivoted towards peace, I found myself going through a metamorphosis, and I found myself evolving into a new version of myself, which I feel is the better version of myself. I'm not in competition with nobody but Janine. And so when you are trying to be the best versions of yourself, it's kind of like you see yourself elevating to a new level. So for me, I want to just jump into thanking you guys for all your support, because you guys have supported me for over a year now. So Intentional Queen Journey has made it over a year, and I can't even believe it. And I just see God doing big things through me, but also just pouring word into you and you pouring back into me. So make sure you guys follow me on IG at Intentional Queen Journey. So share it with a friend that you feel may need this information, because you know what? We're just about here about iron sharpening iron. And when we do that, it makes the reach go further. And if you're really feeling me, you can go ahead, join the newsletter, and that's at intentionalqueenjourney.com. You know, I started the website last year, and so I've been putting blogs up. I started to take some of the content and make it in word form, because some people like to read it or they want to take notes for themselves so they can put it on their vision board or put it in their journal or whatever. And so I'm just progressing in that phase. So if you want to join the newsletter, that's also on the website too, like I said, and I'll be doing some new things for this year. So just stay tuned. So let's jump into what I want to talk to today. And I wanted to title this Hidden in Plain Sight: How to Glow Up in 2022. So now that we started the new year, I'm actually recording this on the first. So how nice is that? Because I feel like I wanted to do it going fresh into the year. Sometimes God hides you for a reason and a season. And the reason why I felt like this needed to be important is because I always talk about the butterfly. And to me, this is kind of that cocoon phase. And so I want to talk a little bit about it. I was watching this movie, and it's called Beyond the Lights. And it was about this pop star who was just not flourishing in that space, meaning like she was struggling emotionally, and she tried to jump over the balcony to commit suicide, but it was a cop there, and he happened to catch her, and she said something to the effect of him of, "Do you see me?" And she said, "Do you see me?" And then he looked at her and said, "I see you." But she's all glitzed and glammed up, because I think she got to a point that people got so used to her facade, but they didn't really see who she really was on the inside. And so the cop ended up saying, "I see you." So when I say I see you, because I put that up on a post on my Instagram stories, and I got some feedback about that, and people were like, "Janine, that feels good," because some people want to be seen and heard. And so sometimes people see the exterior, but they don't really see what you're made of, what's the inside, who you are. And so I feel like 2022 is about I see you. Okay. And you want to start to now build on a solid foundation, whatever you're evolving into, whatever your word is of the year. But I know we all have big dreams and aspirations about where we're going. Make sure that you're building on a solid foundation. So for me, you know, people know I talk a little bit about my professional background of being a nurse for 20 years and having all these degrees and doing all that stuff. But I remember when I was younger, people didn't see that. Like when I would show up, I didn't look like all the degrees and the titles that I had behind my name. And the reason why I bring that up is because that goes hidden in plain sight. So sometimes God, now that I'm older and I've been doing it 20 years, I feel like a chameleon because God allows me to go into spaces and places because I have a lot of knowledge on certain things and a lot of wisdom on certain things, but I've learned how to use it as I need to, because sometimes God needs you in spots and places that not everybody can reach. And so sometimes you could be hidden in plain sight because he needs you to be there to serve a certain population or tend to a certain situation. So that's a message for somebody. I don't know who that's for. So don't let where you are right now determine why you feel like you should be moving on to something else, because sometimes God's keeping you hidden in that one space, in that one place, because you're meant to serve or do something that nobody else can reach. Oh, that's a word. And so next I want to go into this. I just want you to start. I just want you to birth it. Sometimes we get stagnant and we don't want to move forward, and we're wondering why we haven't got what we need. And sometimes God puts you in preparation mode and he's saying to you, well, you still where you are because you haven't done what I asked you to do. So that's kind of for me, because there's some things God has put on my spirit that I'm supposed to be doing that, I'm working on it now, but he asked me to do it. And I'm like, well, I don't really. And so one of them was this podcast. So hence, that's one of them things that God told me to do. And it helped me to get into places and spaces that needed the person like me. So there's some spaces and places that God needs you. So be yourself. So just start. I remember when I birthed this podcast, it wasn't perfect. I think my first recording, I did it on my phone. Actually, I like half done it. Like I was just like, I'm just going to put 3 minutes together and just say what I think. And people felt that. But I didn't feel like it was perfect. I had critiqued it so bad. I was just like, oh, I got to redo all this over. But most of the time, people like your authentic self. So just start. Don't look for perfection, because people respect you more when you're authentic, because they realize that you real. You know what I mean? And so, yes, I can speak professional lingo when I'm doing, my teaching, or I'm at the university and I'm doing those type teaching, but I also can speak that slang to you too in these streets. But I also know how to mold and morph into something else if I need to. So that's for somebody else too. When you go to new levels, you're going to meet some new devils. And so preparation is sometimes what's happening, not punishment. So sometimes God is preparing you as you're getting ready to morph into your next level that he needs you to handle and be ready, get strengthened, because you getting ready to meet something new. And so he wants you to understand how to maintain and handle this. So that way, when you go to the next level, you ready. The next level you go, the door opens because you're ready. So sometimes it's about getting ready. Fear is pretty common when you trying to start something, birth something, step on the scene, going into a new year. You got so many thoughts and ideas you're trying to do. And I just don't want fear to stop you. I want you to have courage. And as I said before in one of my episodes about courage is vulnerability, but I also think I talked about it with my confidence episode, that it starts off with courage, and then you keep doing it, and then slowly it will lead to confidence, and then you will step on out there and do your thing. So just start, be courageous, know that you got you at all costs, and just do it. So just play big to win. I think Terry Huggins Hart, she's one of my guests. She did the imposter syndrome episode with me, and that was one of her things. And I thought, if you want to play it big, stop playing small, is what she said. And that's for somebody too, because sometimes we play it small because we don't want that all that attention of playing it big. But sometimes you are big, so just go on and do that and recognize who you are, because you are a giraffe. What? In these streets. I know y'all just said that in the car. So learn your lessons as you grow, because sometimes things are meant for a lesson, for you to learn them. So that way, when they come back through again, you recognize what it is when it comes forth. Okay. Because God will use anything. He'll use people, he'll use words, songs, animals, but he will never leave you alone, and he will check in on you. I'm speaking that from my own personal life that when you are in the trenches, when things is a little iffy, he like, hold on, let me send you a word, let me send you a person. So, I don't know who's listening to this podcast and if you're totally spiritual, but I'd be remiss if I don't put God first for me, because Matthew 6:33 is what I stand on. So when I speak to you guys, I just speak from my personal life, my personal experience, because these are things I witnessed in my own career on all the other things I've done in life. And I've seen him show up for me and show out every single time. What's the definition of insanity? That's doing the same thing over and over, expecting a different result. Well, the reality is it won't change unless you change. So you got to be okay with rebuilding. Sometimes rebuilding is your structure has crumbled. It's okay. You take that on the chin, but let's rebuild this thing. But I want you to rebuild it on solid foundation. What does that mean? Sometimes that's changing your queen tribe. Sometimes that you got to go in there and do your own mental work. Sometimes that's going ahead and changing your lens of yourself and loving yourself more and all that stuff. I know loving yourself is like a cliche, but people don't really understand. People treat you how you allow them to. So that's why I did that whole episode on teach them how to treat you, because you got to make sure that you are setting boundaries and rebuilding on something that you want to withstand the rain, the storms, and everything. Because what they say in Three Little Pigs, what they had, the house with the sticks, but the ones on the brick, that it sustained. And I think I talked about that too with Tyler Perry, and he talks about nobody wants to talk about the foundation of a home, but that's the most hardest work. That's what's not seen, right? When you build a house, you don't see the basement. You know what I mean? Unless you got a house that's above ground. But most of the time, the basement is down in the ground, and that is hard work. If your foundation is not sturdy, it will crumble when you keep putting things on top. So make sure that you're doing the work. And as you're doing the work, just kind of make sure you solidifying that thing so it's going to withstand. Because it's not how fast you do it. Sometimes you got to slow walk it. And what I mean by slow walk it is, it don't happen overnight. It don't happen on quick success. It's not a microwave type thing. It's kind of like, you got to put it in the oven. You got to put that thing on slow and let that thing roast all day, Well, my mama used to have them Dutch ovens. Like, you got to put it in there and, let that thing cook slow. And so what I want you to do with that is realize that you can't get overnight success, but the work you put in now is like just building on things one at a time. And I think I did another episode called Build and They Will Come, and I talked about you speak to the one, you just keep sowing the seed and sowing the seed, and then at some point you'll reap all them seeds that you sown later. But when you put it in the dirt, you are just planting it for another season for it to come. So that's a word for somebody. So I feel like some of the seeds I have sown in my life, in my teaching career and all that stuff, I get to see it come back to me. And I remember telling some of my students over these years, of teaching, I remember telling them when they asked me, Janine, what can I do for you? And I just say, pay it forward. Because my thing is, there was people who came in my life when I was learning and would help me, coach me. I still have 2 work moms that when I got questions about things that I'm doing in my current career, I'll text them up in a minute. Never be ashamed to ask for what you need, but also never be ashamed of rebuilding because of a structure that was shaky. Just make sure this time when you do it on solid ground. Learning yourself to the fullest. Start learning more about you, what you like, what you don't like, and start just trying to create a life that fits you and be around people who can fit that. You want to be around like-minded people, but you also don't want to stay around people that's just on your level, because you'll never grow. You want to create a circle of people who is accelerating a little faster than you, or they're on the next stage of where you're trying to go, so they can mentor you to that level. So always make sure that you're never just the smartest person in the room, because then you'll never grow, because you've now hit the ceiling of where you're going and you always want to be going higher. That's a word for somebody. So always keep pushing. Love yourself in your own company. Listen, when you love yourself, like I said, you change that lens up, you see what you doing, you know who you are out here in these streets, you know your worth, you know your value, you know if you winning or if you losing, you got you. Listen, people see it too. Anybody else that come through, anything else that you do, any added business you add, any whatever, it becomes a bonus. Because if you're without those things, you will still be complete. You're still complete in a whole person with or without all the other stuff. And when you can understand that, it doesn't make you flim flam or shady, talking about swaying with the wind of your feelings, because you know, well, I know how to handle me with, and I know how to handle me without. And there's one part of me that has never changed, whether I got it or I don't. That's somebody right there. Another thing is energy is real. So be careful who you giving your energy to, because some people are like bloodsuckers of your energy. And that goes back to, like I said, and I guess I got to do an episode on it, it's capacity. Some people just like, they will just, your well will run dry, and you be like, man, I just needed a little something back, and they might hit you with a spritzer, like that water bottle, they just spritz you, but it just really don't refill you. And so you have to be careful, because energy is real, and not everybody's out to support you. And that's what I mean by new levels, new devils. So just be mindful that even as you start to shine your light right on the world, you're going to have some people that's going to come up against you, because it ain't going to always be roses and butterflies. Okay. I want you to plan your vision and walk out your purpose. Sometimes that's a moment of when you have to serve others. I love to serve others, but it starts from within, and then just knowing your capacity to what you can serve, because sometimes we can overly do it, and that's how burnout happens, is when you're just doing the most. So just be cautious of when you're doing these things, that you don't go into superwoman syndrome, okay, and your cape get raggedy, or you go in the burnout mode because you're trying to be 50 million things and doing the most. Sometimes you got to just kind of simmer in on a couple things, knock them out, and then hit up something else. I want you to stay in the present, meaning the present moment, because it's a gift. You can't go back and you can't change, and you can't move forward, meaning like you can't tell what's going to happen in the future. You're not a psychic, you don't know. And so all you can control is what's happening in the present, and that's a gift. You know what I mean? And so stay there, because sometimes we have the fear of the unknown, so then we don't want to move forward, and then you may have your own thoughts about your past, so then you stay back there too, because that's all you do know, but you can't go back there. So stay right here. And so that come from when I told y'all last time about you had to go through it. And see, when you had to go through it, I'm standing where I'm standing, and I will not be moved. I hear Bishop Noel saying that, and that's one of my things. When he say it, I feel it every time. I'm standing where I'm standing, and I will not be moved with it. When they come with that contrary wind, I've been there and I've done that. See, when you've been around and you done some things, and things have happened, and you took some things on the chin, and man, life can be kind of messy. Sometimes God just tell you stand still. And I don't mean stand still like don't move forward in life, but sometimes when the winds is coming and people telling you 50 million things to do, sometimes you have to be peaceful and stand still, and know that God is real, and he going to handle some things, and he's going to guide you, cuz half of the things that I've done in life have been because he pivoted and told me to do it. Just stay in the present. Do the things that you can control. The future is unknown, and the past is what it is. You can't go back there. And that's kind of why when I talk about life coaching, I just want y'all to understand. See, therapy, in my opinion, helps you deal with past traumas, past wounds, and past mindsets, and things along that nature that you're trying to heal. And I feel like life coaching helps you add your present to your forward, so you can say, how can I do better? What can I do? So sometimes I feel like people need both. You need a therapist that's going to help you heal up some wounds, okay, and deal with whatever's bothering you in that past phase. And then you get coached on how to move forward, how to take your purpose how to take your pain and put it into purpose. So that's for somebody too, because somebody asked me, well, Janine, what's really a life coaching? Like, you life coach now. So what does that mean? And that means I take you from present to forward. But my goal is not to help you with the past. I'm gonna talk to you a little bit about my transformations, but I'm not a therapist and I don't function in that light. But I'll be your friend. You know how they said, it's like talking to one of your girlfriends. I'm gonna talk to you if that's what you want to do, but I'm not here to prescribe you anything or give you a treatment plan, but I will hold your hand and walk you to this next level. But you gotta what? Do the work. So it's this one thing, we're gonna get ready to kind of close this up, but it's about rise above. And I was watching something and they was talking about you got to rise above. And what is the snake line? So I had to go, because now, I had to go pull this up on my phone so I could read it to you guys. And the snake line, when they talked about it back in the Bible, and it says scripture suggests a line similar to the snake line of the naturalist, which marks the division between a lower and an upper spiritual altitude, that wily reptile, that deceiver, that destroyer of souls. Above the line, Satan cannot come. Below the line, there's a spiritual depletion, spiritual poverty, weariness, exhaustion, and collapse. So I was watching something, but you know how I tell you, build on solid foundation. Well, I'm going to let you want to build above the snake line, okay? And the snake line is high. Now, what I mean by that is you keep your grass low so you can see when they coming through. Because once again, new levels, new devils, okay? And then when you build your house above solid ground, sometimes you might be at a level and you see them getting closer. So when they getting closer, you have to come up, okay? You have to move up. So make sure your snake line is high, because what happens is they say, and this is me just from what I caught on the research of it, is snakes in higher altitude cannot stay there too long, because I think it's about the temperature and the air, and they just can't survive at that high of a point. So the higher you go, the slower they get, and then it gets to a point they just can't survive there too long. So if you, being an eagle now, come on now, if you an eagle, that's why they soar at high altitudes. Pigeons, chickens, all that, what they gonna do? They can't compare to that, okay? And if you want to talk about a giraffe, because that's always one of my key animals, the neck, when it comes down, remember their neck is at a high altitude, but when they bend it down, that's when they become endangered. So they have to keep their neck high so they can stay clear to have the vision of where they're going. That's a whole word for somebody in the back. Be an eagle. Know where your snake line is. Move that snake line up. If you need to, go higher, because with new levels come new devils. So you have to rise above. You have to always be on the up. Okay. And if you functioning as a giraffe out there in the streets, like I say you are, be careful when you're bending your neck down. You can become endangered. Okay. You come down, get the water, you go here, you serve a few people that need it, but don't stay down there too long, because you endanger yourself. That's a whole word right now. And then there was something by Tyler Perry, because I'm getting ready to wrap this up. And he talked about pray and maintain. Okay. You pray and maintain. You pray and then you go a little bit higher, and then you pray and you maintain. And it's just really when you find yourself hitting a space that is getting more turmoil, you have to go higher. And the way to go higher is you pray and you maintain, and then you go higher, and then you pray and you go maintain. And to me, that reminds me of the snake line. Okay. And then they also, I remember hearing in the past about the disciples. I think Jesus had 12 and then he only took 3. With that being said, he doesn't take all, but it doesn't mean he don't rock with them all. He just, there's 3 for this mission. And so as you climb higher up this mountain and you make your snake line higher, you're going to realize that the quantity of people that started with you is not going to be the quantity of people that finish with you. That's a word for somebody. The quantity of people that start with you may not be the quantity of people that go with you. If they really want to come with you, they got to do their own work too, because you're not out there to super save nobody. I call that Bob the Builder. There was a show on Nickelodeon called Bob the Builder. Okay, it was a little show and a little man come around fixing stuff, Bob the Builder. And so what happens is, if you walk around fixing everybody, super saving them, you Bob the Buildering. Nah, you're not out here doing projects, okay? They got to be able to pull some of their weight, because once again, that affects your capacity to hold. Consistency is key, and then all else, if y'all ain't catch nothing I said today, invest in your legacy, bet on yourself. So if you don't do nothing this year, I want you to make sure that you invest in yourself. Is that coaching? Is that courses? Is that, starting that business that you wanted to do? Is that nonprofit you wanted to do? Like, do that. Invest in yourself. When you bet on yourself, that's the best thing. And if you're creating a legacy, that's even awesome, because you know what? There's people coming behind you. So thank you guys for listening. Thanks for meeting me now in 2022 during Intentional Queen Journey. If this episode bless your screenshot and let me know about it. Let me know what your word is for the year. And I'll see you in 2 weeks, guys. Level up your intentional queen to a better you. Bye-bye.